when someone calls you or someone reaches out to you, what's your discovery kind of process with that? I mean,
hmm I really start by, wanting to understand what it is that prompted them to reach out. Because usually it is a pain point, or it's something that they've been trying to do on their own that, they're not getting the results that they'd like. And then I really try to get them to start envisioning what it is that success would look like. If we were to work together, what is the goal, right? Because anytime that I work with somebody, unless we can get really clear on the goal, we're not going to make progress, right? It's sort of
right.
like going on a trip and not having a destination. You really have to get clear on that on the front end. And then the next thing that I'll do is once and this is, we do explore this if somebody calls me and, it's an exploration call, I do kind of go over this, but this is also the framework for what I do in coaching. Like, so we get clear on the goal, and then we will develop the roadmap for how to get there. We'll identify any gaps that they have in terms of skills. And, I talked about it a little bit before, like, maybe it's time management, maybe it's getting
Hmm.
more comfortable with delegation, maybe it's putting systems in place, but, identifying those skills and starting to work on those. And then something I call environments, which is, giving somebody the safe place to let their hair down and be vulnerable. Really getting clear on goal setting and taking action, being held accountable, and importantly, celebrating achievements. Because for high achieving people, a lot of times they're like, on to next, on to next. And then they'll say like, oh, I'm not very successful. And I'm like, let's look back over your shoulder and see how much
Yeah.
ground you've covered. Like, you have to
Yeah.
stop
Yeah.
every once in a while. And another thing that I will work with people on is learning how to navigate their organizations, because a lot of people don't want to touch politics, but if you want to have influence within your organization, it's important to embrace
Have a
that and
handle.
engage and learn how to do that. And then the last thing, but probably the most important thing, is mindset. It's really
Yes.
getting into that mindset of what I want is possible, and I'm going to believe that it's possible. And, anything that's an obstacle that's standing in the way, it's surmountable if you believe it's possible. It's just a matter of starting to take action. And, one of the things that I talk a lot about with people is that, like, any energy that you spend, thinking negatively or worrying or being critical of yourself or whatever, that's energy that's being sucked away from your ability to focus on your goal and make it happen. So, being negative, I understand why people do it. It's a way of protecting yourself.
Sure.
Um, and if you can, if you notice that you're doing it, try to shift back to a more of a positive place, you're going to have more energy. And if you've got the energy and you
Oh,
can focus it on the goal, you're going to get there quicker.
okay. This is another stop it for a moment here, because you're saying that if I can have positive thoughts, I have more energy, which means I'm taking better care of myself, which means I'm able to do more with less time and
Yeah,
effort.
it's leverage. Yep, exactly. Exactly. You get in the flow, right? You're not like holding yourself back and saying, "Well, I'm not good enough," or "People aren't going to like me," or "This never works." Right? Like, if you
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
believe that, that's going to be your reality. If you believe
Yep.
that maybe this is possible, that it's not going to happen unless you believe that. And actually, I mean, this is a funny thing that sometimes uh people have opportunities around them, and when they are in that negative mindset, they can't see that opportunity. But once they start saying, well, okay, I think that this is possible, they may find that what they wanted is right near them, and they can have it almost immediately. And I've seen it happen. I mean, it's almost unbelievable for me that, I'll say to people like, "Oh, you want a new job? Well, let's start networking, start having some coffee conversations and just see what happens." I've had at least a couple of clients who, they're just having coffee and somebody offers them a job. Mainly
Yeah.
because they allowed themselves to be seen. They said, what they could do. They
Yeah.
asked
Uh
for
huh.
help, and somebody was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, we need somebody like you." let's talk. And
See,
I mean, when they call
yeah,
me and say, hey, that coffee turned into a job offer, I'm like, hooray.
so
I mean,
that's
it's
the way.
amazing.
That's just the way
Yep.
life works. The way nature works for people.
Hmm.
I'll just take a moment real quick because I talk about this. If you are looking for the positive, your mind will allow you to see the positive. And
Yes.
it's science. I mean, it's not just
Hmm.
the fluff stuff, it's science. The reticular activating system is involved. If you say, I'm going to be
Yeah.
positive, I expect to win this job, I expect to be working by the end of
Yes.
the week and a great job, your mind will open up to start seeing those possibilities.
The
And okay,
possibilities.
let's go
Yeah.
have coffee over here. Let's go there.
You know what? One thing that the reason why I think a lot of times people are negative is that they are trying to protect themselves and they don't want to be criticized. You're right about that. But if we can say to ourselves that I'm okay even if I'm not perfect. And if I make mistakes or if I try something and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that I'm any less. If we can start to have positive self-talk for ourselves, that makes it safe for us to try things, right? And I say to people, talk to yourself the way that you would talk to a close friend or loved one. And if we start monitoring the way that we talk to ourselves, I'm not everybody, but a lot of times we can be very harsh to ourselves. Like we can make a mistake and say, oh, that's so stupid. You always make these kind of mistakes.
Yeah.
We would not say that to a dear person to us. We wouldn't say like, oh, you're such an idiot, but yet we'll do that to ourselves. And if we can start to say, you know what, you gave it a good try and you're okay, get up and go get them. You can do it.
Go get it
If we
again.
start talking that way to ourselves, we'll have a lot more energy and we'll feel happier and more lovable because we're loving ourselves.
Okay. Now I have to be respectful of your time. I know we could talk a little bit longer. At least I could. I don't know about you, but I want to.
I can come back.
Okay. Oh, you definitely can. Definitely can.